Can somebody tell me how a high schooler just trying to get stronger to honor his mother went from this to a near unstoppable fighter going head to head with death row inmates? In this video, I'll recap all the episodes from Baki, covering his rise from an underground champion to a warrior who faces the most dangerous criminals alive. Now, let's dive into it. In the first episode, one day at school, Baki falls asleep in class, but strangely, his classmates begin to tremble. The reason is probably his frightening presence. That same day, Tokugawa Mitsunari comes to school. The old man's purpose is to talk to Baki. When they meet, Mitsunari explains the reason for his visit. He warns Baki about 5 dangerous criminals who have escaped from prison. All of these men had been sentenced to death, but strangely, all 5 managed to escape at the same time. It's as if they had planned this long ago. According to Mitsunari, these criminals have come to Japan with one purpose: to fight a truly powerful opponent. The first criminal is Dorian. He survives his execution and escapes by single-handedly defeating the entire security team protecting him. Another is Hector Doyle. He was sentenced to death in the electric chair, but the punishment had no effect on him. Like Dorian, he easily escapes. Then comes Sikorsky. He is a prisoner who managed to escape from a maximum security underground prison in Russia by climbing up using only his finger strength. As soon as he regains his freedom, he goes to the home of Alexander Garland, a highly respected fighter in Russia, and beats him up. Garland has not yet fully recovered from his previous fight with Jack Hanma, making him an easy target for Sikorsky. Another fugitive is Specialist. He is an extremely dangerous criminal who managed to escape from an underwater prison. He claims he can hold his breath underwater for 5 minutes. Finally, there is Ryuko Yanagi. Known as the Poison Hand, this man can kill dozens of people with a single touch. While escaping, he slaughtered the entire security team protecting him. All 5 criminals set out for Tokyo with the same goal: to find an opponent they can defeat. And so this new story begins. Spec is the first to reach Tokyo. He comes to the school and mercilessly beats Baki unconscious in front of his classmates. Baki compares Spec's presence to that of the ogre, his father, Yujiro Hanma. This man is truly someone to be feared. Meanwhile, Dorian enters the scene as a fighter who uses all kinds of weapons. His target is Doppo Orochi. However, before reaching him, he encounters Retsukayo and Katsumi Orochi. Dorian easily defeats Katsumi and then engages in a brief fight with Retsu, but since his real target is Doppo, he decides to leave. A short time later, the 5 criminals go to an underground arena to meet with Mitsunari. The old man asks them why they came to Tokyo. They all give the same answer: "We want to fight someone strong." Mitsunari says he can grant their wish. Just then, Baki and the others arrive. Mitsunari organizes a tournament with a total of 10 participants. The rules are simple: anyone can challenge anyone else, anytime, day or night. Fights can start at any moment. The first fight is between Dorian and Doppo Orochi. The two leave the arena together, and after a calm conversation, the fight begins on the street. Dorian came to Japan solely to fight Doppo. His dream match has come true. However, during the fight, Retsu appears and wants revenge for what happened at the dojo, but Doppo says he has everything under control. This fight doesn't last long, but the most shocking moment is when Dorian cuts off Doppo's hand with a special wire. According to Dorian, this wire is made of a special material used in astronaut suits, which is why it can cut through anything easily. Despite his serious injury, Doppo continues to attack, but he actually does this to buy time to escape. If he had actually continued the fight, he would have definitely lost due to excessive blood loss. Elsewhere in the city, Igari Kanji kidnaps Sikorsky to get revenge and takes him to the gym. The reason for this incident is that Sikorsky mercilessly attacked Igari at the beginning of this story. That's why Igari still has a bandage on his head. However, things don't go as Igari planned. Sikorsky severely beats Igari and his men. The Russian fighter is determined to fight the strongest man in the world. Meanwhile, Baki is out walking with his girlfriend Kozue, but suddenly, Spec appears. Fortunately, Hanayama Kaoru arrives just in time, rescues his friend, and takes Spec to a nearby park. And this is where one of the most unforgettable fights in the series takes place. The Hanayama vs Spec fight is considered one of the most brutal and beloved fights in Baki history. But by the end of the night, Hanayama manages to defeat Spec after a great struggle. However, the fight is so violent that Hanayama is seriously injured and has to be taken to the hospital. With this fight, Hanayama earns the respect of many viewers, not only for his resilience, but also for risking his life to protect his closest friend. The next day, while Baki is at school, an unexpected visitor arrives. Hector Doyle. The criminal wants to fight Baki right there and then, but Baki escapes by jumping out the window, not not because he is afraid, but because he doesn't want to endanger his classmates. But this time, another criminal, Ruko Yanagi, is looking for Baki. He challenges him to a fight. In the middle of the fight, Shibakawa Guki shows up to help Baki, but to little effect. Ultimately, Baki is defeated by Yanagi. At this point in the series, Guki still hasn't gotten over the trauma of his defeat against Yanagi. Later, Baki and the others gather at Tokugawa Mitsunari's house. The old man scolds them all for being defeated by criminals, but something unexpected happens. Dorian crashes the meeting. Of course, this is a very bad decision for Dorian because everyone there gangs up and beats him up. Dorian barely escapes with his life. When they return home, Baki learns that Sikorsky has secretly entered his girlfriend's house. The two engage in a brief fight, but the Russian fighter tricks Baki and kidnaps Kozui. This infuriates Baki, and he begins searching everywhere to find his girlfriend. But what he doesn't know is that his own father, Yujiro Hanma, is behind this. It was Yujiro who gave Sikorsky this idea. He told him the best way to motivate Baki is to take away what he loves. Just as Yujiro and Sikorsky are about to fight, a new character enters the scene, Biscuit Oliva. The strongest man in the United States has come to Tokyo. Oliva has been tasked by the government to capture 5 fugitives, which is why he is there. His goal is to capture Sikorsky and send him back to prison. Meanwhile, Baki also arrives at the scene and starts throwing punches without hesitation. He throws Sikorsky out of the building and even tries to hit Oliva. However, he quickly realizes how strong and heavy this man is. Baki doesn't give up and continues to search for Sikorsky. He finally finds him in an abandoned building. Sikorsky is taking a shower there, but Baki barges in and starts fighting him before he even has time to put on his underwear. This time, Baki is truly furious. Without wasting any time, he beats Sikorsky badly. The Russian fighter can't even defend himself. Then Biscuit Oliva returns, captures Sikorsky, and takes him back to prison. Baki is so impressed by Oliva's strength that fighting this man becomes one of his new goals. In the following chapters, Baki and Kozue strengthen their relationship. On the first night they spend together, a strange event occurs. Yujiro Hanma shows up. He gives his son what amounts to a motivational speech saying, "If you want real power, you will be with your girlfriend day and night." Baki listens to his father's words and stays with his girlfriend for days. Wanting to test his new power, Baki soon visits Yanagi again, and this time he has no intention of running away from the fight. What Yanagi didn't expect was that Baki had become much stronger. He was no longer a child, but a man. Baki attacks Yanagi with the whip strike technique, but things get even more interesting because Sikorsky shows up to take revenge for what was done to him a few days earlier. However, Baki is now much stronger than before and easily defeats them both. Yanagi and Sikorsky are so humiliated that they start crying with shame. Baki no longer wants to fight and leaves with his girlfriend because he has more important things to do. But in the midst of these fights, Baki has been exposed to Yanagi's poison. He doesn't take it very seriously and doesn't even go to the hospital, but this is a big mistake because the poison is slowly consuming his body from within. Hector Doyle is also defeated by Katsumi Orochi, but unlike the other prisoners, he accepts his defeat like a man. Unfortunately, Yanagi dislikes Doyle's honorable behavior and attacks him as he is about to leave Japan. Doyle loses his eyesight and becomes an easy target. Sikorsky has been defeated many times before, and he is defeated again, this time by his opponent Jack Hanma. He later faces Gaia, a master of environment-based combat, but as expected, he loses again. This time, Sikorsky begs for his life and accepts defeat. Yanagi is defeated by Motobi Izo. Motobi cuts off his hand and seriously wounds him. However, the one who truly knocks him out is Yujiro Hanma. Ogre demands that he accept defeat, but Yanagi refuses. Upon this, Yujiro knocks him out with a single punch. All 5 prisoners are defeated and, except for Dorian, who has lost his memory, are sent back to prison. Baki is still under the influence of Yanagi's poison, and this time, even Hanma's blood doesn't seem to save him. In the first episode of Season 2, a new character enters the story, Muhammad Ali Jr., son of the legendary boxer Muhammad Ali. Like his father, he is an elite boxer. Some even say he is superior to him. However, he quickly becomes one of the most disliked characters in the series, because while Baki is in the hospital, this man starts flirting with Kozue. Moreover, in one scene, he humiliates Yujiro Hanma without even physically touching him. Because of his arrogant attitude, many people begin to hate him. It's clear that his target is Baki. Meanwhile, Baki's condition worsens. The poison won't leave his body. Now Baki and his friends will participate in the great fighting tournament held once every 100 years. The winner of this tournament will receive the title of Kaio Emperor, a title given only to the strongest fighters. Ali Jr. also wants to participate in the tournament. After passing some tests, he is accepted into the tournament and joins Baki's team, but something unexpected happens. Ogre, aka Yujiro Hanma, also enters the tournament, thus the foreigners team begins to fight against the Chinese fighters. Retsu, who is of Chinese origin, must now fight against his own people. Also in this round, Yujiro humiliates Retsu's master. The man is so ashamed he could sink into the ground. Baki, meanwhile, faces a poison expert fighter in this round. At first, we think Baki will lose, but in the end, thanks to his girlfriend's support and Hanma's blood, he manages to completely expel the poison from his body. And so, as Baki Prisoner's End ends, China Tournament End begins. Baki is now about to prove both his strength and his will. Yujiro Hanma watched Baki's fights as calmly as a father watching his son in the park. However, the two later come face to face in the arena's corridors. Baki provokes Yujiro by saying, "Maybe you're afraid of me." This remark angers Yujiro, and without a moment's hesitation, he shows him who is stronger. In the second round of the tournament, the Japanese team crushes their Chinese opponents. In fact, none of the Chinese fighters stand a chance against Baki and his friends. Kakukayo gets very angry at this situation and changes the rules. The tournament will now be 5-on-5. The winning team will be the one with the most victories. As expected, Baki and his friends win their fights. The only person to win for the opposing team is Retsukayo. However, Yujiro, as always, wants all the attention. The real important fight will be mine, he says, declaring that his match with Kakukayo will determine the fate of the tournament. This fight is truly impressive. For the first time in a long time, someone gives Yujiro a serious fight. In fact, for the first time in years, Yujiro is knocked down, but in the end, as always, the winner is Yujiro Hanma. Thus, Baki's team declares a decisive victory over the Chinese team. After this event, Baki and the others return to Japan. After returning to Japan, Muhammad Ali Jr. continues with his plan to steal Baki's girlfriend. However, he knows that to do this, he must first defeat Baki, so he plans to defeat his friends before directly challenging Baki. Ali Jr. easily defeats Shibukawa Guki first, then Doppo Orochi. Everything is going according to plan, but things change when Baki's older brother Jack Hanma appears. Jack mercilessly beats Ali Jr., leaving the young boxer hospitalized. Taking advantage of this, Guki and Doppo demand a rematch. As expected, Ali Jr. loses to both of them. Despite all the beatings he takes, Ali Jr. does not give up on his plan to win Kozue. Finally, Yujiro Hanma and Muhammad Ali meet and approve the fight between their sons. These two legends are old friends and want to see which of their sons is stronger. The day of the fight arrives, and everyone eagerly awaits the match. However, for Ali Jr., this becomes one of the most disappointing fights in the series. Baki knocks Ali Jr. out with just one punch. If his father hadn't intervened, the young boxer would most likely have died that day. Following this shocking victory, Baki Hanma finally formally challenges his father, Yujiro Hanma. Yujiro, nicknamed Ogre, accepts the challenge and says he will wait for the details of the fight. In the first episode of Baki Hanma, it begins with Yujiro Hanma killing a giant elephant that even tanks couldn't harm. This is a behavior unique to Yujiro. Then Baki befriends a young boy who will later be used solely to interpret his imaginary fights. Baki wins a victory in his imaginary fight against a giant praying mantis. After this, Baki decides that the best way to strengthen himself before his fight with Yujiro is to fight America's strongest man, Biscuit Oliva. However, instead of doing this normally on the street like a regular person, he plans to go to the prison where Oliva is staying. The way to do this is to kidnap the President of the United States. Moreover, he does this in the middle of a parade in front of hundreds of armed guards. As always, what comes to Baki's mind becomes reality, and he easily kidnaps the president. Baki convinces the president to be sent to Arizona prison, and the plan works. When he arrives at the prison, he meets Oliva, but the man nicknamed Unchained doesn't want to fight right away because he will soon fight the second most powerful man in the prison. In his cell, Baki encounters Iron Michael, the former boxer we know from the Maximum Tournament. Also in the same cell is Jun Guevara, the man Oliva will fight. Jun is a pirate who once established his own island and even defied the American president. He can roam the prison as he pleases, steal cigarettes or weapons from the guards, and beat up other prisoners when he gets bored. One night, 3 men are sent to cripple Iron Michael, but Jun intervenes and saves him. After this incident, Jun and Oliva meet, and their fight takes place shortly after. The fight is extremely intense, chance. But despite Jun's best efforts, America's power prevails, and Oliva defeats him. A few days later, Oliva finally agrees to fight Baki. The fight destroys the prison. The walls, doors, and part of the floor are completely destroyed. Even though Oliva attacks with all his might, Baki does not give up. In the end, Baki manages to defeat America's strongest man. Then, as if nothing had happened, he returns from America to Japan by bicycle. At the end of the season, a creature is shown in a short scene. This creature will be the main enemy of the next season. In the next season of Baki Hanma, approximately 190 million years ago, a transparent layer of salt 1,000 meters thick had formed. The miners working there suddenly stopped because they couldn't believe what they were seeing. The underground workers found a man frozen inside the rock. There was also a dinosaur fossil next to him. They extracted the man from the rock and gave him to scientists. Scientists tried to revive this man who had been frozen for 190 million years, but they were unsuccessful. The man had petrified without suffering any damage. Although a frozen T-Rex was also found in the same rock, it is unknown why they did not try to revive it. But as usual, they failed because of their stupidity. The giant man woke up on his own from hunger. This is how the new season of Baki began. The martial arts anime suddenly turned into horror science fiction. A giant angry creature appeared that hunted and ate people, but things quickly changed. A naked man appeared and managed to befriend the creature. This man had approached it by showing it his genitals. Since no one in America cared about this 190 million year old creature, the mustachioed man took it to Japan. Because in the Baki universe, Japan is the center of the world, and Baki lives there. The creature's name was Pickle. It was born in an age when humans didn't exist, probably raised by a dinosaur. Its posture resembled that of Yujiro Hanma, because it descended from the 190 million year old Hanma lineage. In fact, that was why Yujiro was so powerful. He was a dinosaur. All the characters seemed to have lost their sense of security. Everyone wanted to meet this creature. Pickle greeted everyone who came before him and urinated powerfully on them, then fell back asleep. However, it didn't take long for the creature to get hungry. The mustachioed man chose the most annoying member of the team to feed him, an old kung fu master who never stopped talking about 4,000 years of martial arts. Pickle partially ate him. It only took a piece from his leg and shoulder. Later, a live lizard that was supposed to be kept under protection escaped and roamed around, randomly attacking people. At the same time, someone else sent hundreds of fighters to find Pickle, but they all went to their deaths. The plan didn't work. They had to fight Pickle one-on-one while he was hungry. One of these men thought he was the main character of the story and believed he could defeat Pickle with his imagination alone. He imagined his arms could become whips and attack at supersonic speed. However, imagination only works for Baki, not random side characters. As a result, he broke his own arms and legs by punching Pickle's titanium-hard body. Just as he was about to be defeated, Pickle, not being hungry, decided to eat only Katsumi Orochi's hand. The fathers were strange as always. Doppo Orochi, watching his son being eaten alive in front of hundreds of people, was only thinking about his son's fighting honor. When Pickle got hungry again, this time a much bigger prey appeared, Jack Hanma. Jack, who was weak in brain cells, attacked using all the intelligence he had. He wanted to confuse him by kissing him, but Pickle had only ever kissed a female T-Rex in his life, and she liked it rough. So Pickle kissed Jack so hard he tore off half his face and ate it. Greedy Jack wanted more, but Pickle was exhausted and ran away from him. Finally, the true hero of the Baki series appeared in the 10th episode of the 13-episode season. The Hanma brothers seemed to share a single brain. The 50-kilogram Baki decided to fight a 300-kilogram giant creature using only his physical strength. He turned down a certain victory he could have achieved with his fighting skills and fought only to prove his endurance. After putting on an amazing fight against a prehistoric mutant creature that loved meat, Baki's body was examined by Dr. Kureha, who was definitely not gay. However, the consequences of this fight were severe. Encountering a creature that seemed to have come out of a nightmare left its mark on Baki's mind. His mind harbored anger toward Yujiro Hanma. He felt unprepared for a real battle against his father in his current state. Meanwhile, Baki and Kozue's relationship began to deteriorate. While Kozue craved intimacy every night, testosterone-fueled Baki only thought about fighting. For him, throwing punches was far more important than showing affection. Baki knocked out a few punks on the street to clear his head. But while doing so, he ran into a man who had worked with his mother in the past. Over coffee, they reminisced about Baki's childhood, his bodybuilding days, and the love between his mother Emi and Yujiro. As the conversation turned emotional, Baki got up from the table and walked away. Meanwhile, Yujiro Yujiro was having fun with Black Mamba in prison. Tokugawa bought off the Tokyo government, allowing father and son to fight without police intervention, thus saving the lives of hundreds of people. While training in his basement, Baki was fighting Yujiro's ghost form. Jerry Stridham was preparing to challenge Yujiro, as he did every year. His task was to lose the fight without doing anything, because provoking Yujiro was dangerous. Meanwhile, the world government was discussing how to control Yujiro, but Ogre crashed the meeting and confused the American president so much that he forgot who he was. Baki saw a friend in his dream and imagined what it would be like if he and Yujiro sat down to dinner together. He told Stridham about this thought, and Stridham relayed it to Yujiro. Yujiro was pleased that his son wanted to spend time with him and decided to have a trial dinner with Tokugawa. Baki seemed to have lost his mind while training in his basement, his movements resembling those of a cockroach. After a while, Yujiro came to have coffee with his son. However, he was unprepared because it was the first time in his life he had tried to do something proper. He got angry and started to flare up, splitting the table in two and leaving in fear. Sometime later, while Baki was walking down the street, he was attacked by Chiharu Shiba, a suicidal fighter. Hanayama had sent this man to keep Baki from getting bored. Baki enjoyed the fight immensely, responding to Shiba's punches and kicks with his head. In the end, he defeated his opponent by crushing his fingers with his eyes. Baki returned home and began praying to a cockroach. Retsu faced a boxing champion opponent and was completely overwhelmed at the start of the fight. However, at that very moment, he remembered his teacher's favorite dish made from soap while he was at the temple. Motivated by the power of soap, Retsu managed to defeat his opponent and became a legend in the World Cleaner Boxing Championship. Yujiro met Doppo at a bar and asked him for help in being polite at a friendly dinner with his son. Doppo gave him advice. With his help, Yujiro and Baki reunited for another dinner. Everything was going smoothly. Yujiro was extremely polite this time until the pair decided to play rock, paper, scissors. When Yujiro lost, his primal instincts resurfaced and he flew into a rage and fled. Unable to control his rage, the ogre tore apart the police patrolling around Baki's house. Unsatisfied with his own failure, Yujiro invited Baki to a third dinner. This time, he even wore his best suit. The dinner was going well at first until Baki asked a question about his mother. This triggered Yujiro's wild nature once again, and the red light in his eyes flashed once more. But this time, Baki didn't let his father escape and grabbed him by the jacket. Thus began the long-awaited fight between father and son. This scene was powerful enough to be the series finale. The battle between the two fighting masters commenced. Although it appeared to be a completely normal fight between humans, extremely absurd techniques were used. Jumping off skyscrapers, throwing shoes, slapping women, breaking bodies, dinosaur attacks, love beams, father-son hugs, and angry spectators. Baki even summoned his grandfather's ghost to his side, like a Patronus to encourage him. Finally, Baki and Yujiro reached their limits. Kozui suddenly appeared and said a few things, but no one cared about the presence of the women in this family. The two giants continued to fight. When the fight ended, Baki was exhausted. As Yujiro prepared to leave, Baki summoned his grandfather's spirit one last time, and that spirit attacked his father. After both shared the Patronus's meal, Yujiro declared Baki the strongest man in the world. The two shook hands, and thus the fight ended. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this recap, make sure to like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments which anime you want next. The one with the most likes will be my next video. Check out the videos on screen for more epic stories. See you next time.